So this first person that we have coming up is an amazing couple. You know, sometimes you at church you have coffee with them and you sit down a little bit, but you don't really get to know somebody. So just recently, I found out a little bit about Mary and Dwane Sanders, and I'm blown away, just like I am blown away about these other ladies that presented. I'm like, who knew? How do you get this information? Well, I've been doing it for 30 years. Well, there you go. That's why you're up here telling us how to do things and what worked and what didn't work. So we get to learn from these ladies, these incredible ladies and men that have experienced this stuff. So with no further ado, I'd like to invite Mary and Dwane Sanders to come on down. Yeah.
Okay. Where's my book at? At 3:30 this morning, the Lord woke me up, and He gave me something for all of you guys here. And I feel like I want to share it with you. I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to go from there, okay? He's calling you pioneers, okay? Some of you are called to be pioneers. As you begin to walk spiritually with me, I will allow you to possess your land physically. And as you possess your land physically, you shall produce in a physical matter. The Lord shall increase with your hands, and you shall become a Jacob everywhere you go and everywhere you put your feet. I shall bless you, for I am allowing you to homestead yourself. To me, that your land may be a fruitful garden. So we're going to begin how Dwane and I first moved to the country. And it was when our kids were babies, and we had a mobile home, and I had just had my daughter. I had her at home, and we sold our mobile home, and we wanted to buy a piece of land. So we moved to a little town called El Cajon, and we were there for about 2 years, and I got really, really sick. What happened was our landlord would spray with diesel oil. He lived in the front, and we lived in the back, and the driveway kind of met from the front to the back, and he would spray diesel oil all around our house. And there was a lot of smog in the area, and there was a lot of dampness because the floor was right in the radius of where the foundation was, and I got damp sickness from dampness, and I got sick from the diesel oil. And so I had a doctor friend that I actually always took my kids to. She was actually a naturopathic doctor. And she put you on a slant board, and then she'd look at you and she said, Mary, you need to move out in the country. Put your kids out there. So we had already planned to do that, and that's where we ended up moving to. We moved to a little place it was actually about 35 miles away. And at the time, I couldn't eat anything. The only thing I could eat was I was on enzymes, and I actually could only stomach to drink eggnogs. That was my protein, that was my meal. And my babies were young. My youngest was about 3, and my daughter was about 17 months. So we had found a little place in the country in back of a place that Dwane and I were having gatherings at, and it was in Baina Valley. It means the Valley of the Whale. And what happened was it was a board and bat house. Does anybody know what a board and bat house is? Go on ahead, Dwane.
Well, what they are, they don't have studs in them. They're 1x12 boards, and then there's a bat nailed over the crack, and there's a rail that kind of runs around the middle of the wall. I guess ties it all together. I was trying to figure out how it stands up, but it made a good shelf. But it had been the old Pepper Ranch, and he'd built this for his mother years ago. And then the bathroom was an add-on later because it had an outhouse, And so we patched it up, and it had this kind of fiberboard in the inside. It was pre-drywall, and so we spackled it all up, and I was afraid to jack up the bathroom. I thought I might break the pipes. So when you sit on the toilet, it looked like you were taking off, But it ran over and went through the wall, so it's great. Anyway, and then there was a hole where the faucet in the bathtub was, and she kept telling me to plug it up. And our son, when he'd get excited, he'd open his mouth, and a frog jumped right in. Yeah, I still didn't fix it yet, but when Mary walked in, there was a snake sliding around in there. She made me plug it off. But it was an interesting place. Indian matabis all around it with grinders. Yeah, it was on 100 acres. And we eventually... You want to carry it from here?
No, you tell them what happened.
But
we had a lot of spiritual experiences there. And I went to the linen closet, and the Lord was really speaking to me about how, he says, Peter, he said, your sickness is not going to end in death, but it's going to be to the glory of God. And I went ahead and I found a bottle of Watkins cough syrup that had the balm of Gilead in it. And from that point, the Lord began to give me the ability to write things and on just crazy things that he was allowing me to do. I remember Dwane praying for me because I could feel my body, my spirit was leaving my body. And I was having an experience, but God was getting us ready for what was ahead of us. And at that time, Dwane actually had another experience where...
I was had a bad cold, and I had bought a old parlor stove, and the stack was already in the building. So I had a good fire going in there because that was the only heat. And I was laying on the sofa there, and I felt the presence of the Lord just nail me to that sofa. I couldn't move it. It was like someone turned up a knob, and then it backed off. And I knew if it got any stronger, it was going to kill me. But the presence of the Lord was in it. And, and that's like the experience of a lifetime, But,
What did he say to you?
Oh, he says, I was walking down the road a couple days later, and he said, this is the beginning of regeneration. So it's been a spiritual walk this whole time. You want to carry it from here?
Oh.
Well, she made better notes.
Anyways, that's when I began to get my animals. I got goats. I got 2 goats from a lady that I actually knew when we lived in the city, and I used to buy eggs from her, and she had goat's milk, so I bought a goat. Her name was Honey Goat, and I had Trinket. So Trinket they were both Nubian goats, and then I had babies with her, and then I actually bought some chickens, and I bought some fryers, and later on down the line, I had bought some turkeys. But we figured it out that when you raise turkeys, you raise the chickens with the turkeys, because the turkeys don't know how to drink. They will drown themselves. So you put the turkeys in there with the chickens, and we had a little pool that we had actually, it was actually in Jeffrey's bedroom, and he thought that was pretty fun. He'd watch the chickens and the turkeys, and they learned how to drink on their own. So we raised them, and when we had fryers, we had meat fryers, and so we butchered those, and then we had the eggs, and then I had the goats. And then at that time, we actually made a garden, and I could see that the Lord was allowing me and my family to become healthier because of what we were attaining and the obedience of how he was allowing us, through the suffering, to be brought into more life in what he had for us. So at that time, we had looked all over for land, and the very first one we looked at was right across the street from this property on a 100-acre ranch. And we purchased it, and Dwayne's going to tell you something about that.
I'll tell you what, buy one that's already split and surveyed. There was a lady in the San Diego County Council that said she's going to stop well drilling in the backcountry. So, man, we didn't know where the corners were. It was in chains and links. So many chains and so many links long. That's how they surveyed back then. This had been originally homesteaded by the Swycaffers, and we bought it off of a cousin. But the guy was originally going in with backed out, so my dad goes, I'd kind of like to build a house up there, you know. So we talked the lady into carrying the papers, and then 2 years later we got through a lot split. I mean, the county is greedy there. We hired some surveyor, an older guy, and then he went on Mormon missionary duty, and his son took over, and it got expensive. But we found out that the old Julian Highway, which went to this old gold mining town up in the hills here, built by a Confederate soldier by the name of Julian. And it was, and it cut through the corner of our property, and I didn't know where I knew we owned that, so we drilled a well real quick to make sure that we didn't get stopped. And it was on the opposite side of the road that I really wanted it. But anyway, so we decided we were going to live off the land, so we bought this Dempster windmill, and we built it from scratch.
Well, what happened is we had to move from that property that we had all the animals, and they had told us that the Pepper Ranch had sold, so we ended up looking for a place, and that's actually, we did drill the well, but what happened was we had to move, and we ended up moving on a 100-acre cattle ranch that had 50 cows and a big Brahma bull, and we were to watch them, and we were in a rock house. So what was it, 14 loads, 2 hours each way, with the animals and all the goats and the feed and whatever else, you know. We had to go one way and then back another way, and so we ended up moving into this big rock house.
Yeah, this is 4,000 feet. This was old lady Spencer, the cattle tycoon's house. I mean, no walls were as tall as this, you know, and of course the first night we went through the Westmoreland earthquake. No, it was fine, but down in Imperial Valley there, it over the hills there, like the police department, it was specially built on rubber bumpers so it wouldn't fall down, and well, it tore it up so bad they had to tear it down. I mean, it really shook, you know. I'm trying to grab the kids, and I ran into a rock wall, trying to find. It was dark, you know. But anyway, so here we are. We got this here cattle ranch, and we're gonna run this. We've never had a cow, and I've got all these cows and a big Brahma bull I'm supposed to be taking care of. He was huge, you know. His name was Satu, and he was kind of a silvery blue with a big hump, you know, and they'd rented a square mile of forestry land, and I was trying to keep track of these cows, you know, and I'd never worked with cows before, and then they gave me an old 26-year-old horse to ride, which I later learned was basically blind, but it was a nice horse. But anyway, these cows, I had them out on the old Highway 80 before they built the Interstate 8, and they'd get out on the road, and they'd get their hoofs caught in the cattle guard. And
it was scary.
It's, you know, if you get a cow, make sure they don't have any horns, because when they go to scratch a fly and you're in the way, the horn's going to get you. But anyway, we learned a lot about cows. Of course, we still had our goats there and chickens and turkeys, and
And I actually milked the goats, and then I made cheese, and I had chicken. I still had my chickens, and I had my turkeys. And my daughter Jeffrey was actually in a. I had put him into a Christian school, but then later on I pulled him out. But Dwane would go down the hill. It took about an hour to get down the hill to go to work. Him and his dad had a wood shop. So I remember killing this turkey that was actually dressed out at 35 pounds. It's funny how Dwane and I had killed those turkeys, and this was supposed to be for my family's Thanksgiving. Now you got to realize all the time you put into raising that turkey. Being blessed by what it was, I was raising it on goat's milk too, plus its feed, and there was hardly any fat on it. And what happened was all I did was get complaints at my parents and my sisters. It just doesn't taste like a butterball. So, no more.
But when we had moved over there, I felt bad leaving the place where our property was. And I heard the Lord speak to me as I was leaving. He says, "You'll be back in 2 years." And I looked when we moved back over to the property. It was exactly 2 years to the weekend. You know, but we chased cows and we learned about cows. And then but experiences with big bulls. They're out on the road, and I get all the cows back in, but that giant bull. I mean, he was 12 or 1,300 pounds. You know, he was so big they wouldn't even brand him. He'd tear the machine up. You know, and I had to get him back in. You know, and I tried to be nice, and he turned around and he raked those front feet at me. And I looked all around. There wasn't a tree or anything, And so he'd been raised on a bucket somewhere, and so I started baby talking that bull. And he turned around and he ran toward them cows, and he jumped an 8-wire barbed fence. I'd never seen so big jump over a fence in my life. I always think, "Thank you, Lord." All happy about that. But anyway, that was a real experience. It was cold in that big stone house, Oh God, it was covered. There were this big old black rough rattlesnakes everywhere out there. And so a friend of mine, Dwane and Mary here, is over and under bred a 12-gauge shotgun, Well, she learned how to shoot the snakes. Even some neighbors were having her come over and shoot theirs. I'd say, "What the world is that snake doing? He's in the tree over there. You said he was on the drive." Well, it kept moving, so she blasted it. Well, okay, I won't tell any more of that. But
Anyways, Dwane, you didn't like the rattlesnakes, remember? Okay, but one day I was going out to milk the goats, and I opened up the barn, and I'll be darned if there wasn't a big fat rattlesnake sitting on the alfalfa. I just about died. I had my shorts on. I says, "I'm not going to milk those cows." So I waited. I actually waited until maybe he would go another direction or wait for Dwane to come home, because I didn't know if I could get it, and open up the door and get it. But at the time, we ran into a gas shortage. And that's when the gas shortage was I don't know if it was out here too, but Dwane, because he was traveling, he ended up putting a gas tank in our little Falcon. And so we were really close to Tecate, Mexico, and I would go down there and buy gas.
At the time we were first married, and they said that the earth was run out of oil, and then they'd show on TV an empty sign on the earth, but the gas was 47 cents a gallon down there. I mean, instead of yellow like ours, it was green, but at the time, but
And that's where we bought our windmill.
it sure did ping. Yeah, so there was a place down there that It sold these Dempster windmills just as you go into Mexico. So we ended up buying this $5,000 windmill. Yeah, the first one, he just started selling them. So we decided that we're living off the land, so we kept going back over to our property and until we, had to dig like 5-foot holes in the ground and lay a form and we built it from the ground up.
That's all on the internet.
Yeah, it's on the pictures of Homestead 101. And we built it piece by piece until I got to the top, and then I had a guy that lived near this ranch, way over there where we were, and he came over and put the gearbox in the wheel. I built the wheel on the ground. It was a 10-foot wheel. The gearbox altogether weighed 450 pounds. And I was afraid of heights, but I managed to build this windmill. And I stood on that little framework there with nothing on me to hold me. And I was scared to death, and this guy lifted this big old wheel up there. He just barely got his thing high enough. And I had to catch this thing and put it down this hole and then put a collar on it. But anyway, it was a lot of work, and we used it for a number of years. But
Well, Dwane actually, he cleared a lot of the land because it had sagebrush on it. And that was a lot of physical work. I mean, we would go back and forth to Campo, from Campo to there, and he would physically cut with a mattox this sagebrush, thick sagebrush. He was so faithful. And in the midst of it all, we could see Father just giving us things. He gave us a windmill. And now he began to speak to me, and he said, I'm going to give you a house where there is no house. And I'm going to give you walls where there are no walls. And I'm going to bring you rooms where there are no rooms. And he did. So, there you go, Dwane.
so then we, the well was on the wrong side of the street because we were in a hurry to drill it. And well, the property had not been surveyed for 100 years, and it was in chains and links, and even the surveyor said, we don't know, there's a government marker up the road, and we all have to survey off of that. And so we didn't know where to drill a well originally, but that's why we put it there. So I had to get a hole under the road. It was a county road, the old Julian Highway going up there. And so I had this, my step-grandfather had a ranch up in the hills and had springs, and he wanted to drill holes. Well, he'd bought this deep rock well drilling outfit. It had a Tecumseh motor on it and a gearbox and a place hook up water and different things on it, and you could bore wells with this. It wasn't a huge hole, but I brought a 50-year picture in here of a modern day one.
Still buy them.
Like this, and there's a simpler one here, but I had to alter this thing to drill sideways. So it's a 2-cycle motor, so you don't have any oil in the crankcase. So I was able to re-drill the holes and re-tap the carburetor and turn it sideways, and then solder a tube on the gas cap so the gas wouldn't run out. And we made ramps, and we made a tube out of electrical conduit with diggers, and we literally bored a hole under the highway with it. And then we put I had a permit to do it, and put 2 lengths of 21-foot galvanized pipe under there, and inch and a half galvanized pipe. And then we had it inspected, and of course then I snuck a little electric wire through there after we had it inspected and buried it. Now we had power on the other side of the street later. Yeah, to this old barn that was near the windmill built during the Second World War by the Swikaffer family. The ones that originally homesteaded the whole valley, you know. So anyway, then we got us a windmills pumped to a tank. So we got this. My grandma helped me with a lot of this stuff financially. So we bought this 4,000-gallon tank, and they rolled it off a truck. And I had cleared the brush up the side of the hill. And they said, "You're not going to do this. You know, you can't do this." But I had dug a notch in the hill, and I'd hooked a wagon and a rope and a pulley, and we hook it on the truck, and I'd drag these wagons that shoot up the hill full of gravel, and I put gravel on it, and then my brother and his wife and my folks and us two, we literally rolled that tank up the side of that hill. We took some breaks along the way. It was scarier when we stood it up, but, you know, yeah, it was on gravel. And it sat up there a little bit, and then my grandma, she had the Word of Life ministry, went all over the world. And she had a wedding chapel, and it did quite well. And she saying, "Well, you really, whatever happened to those barn things you were looking at, you know? They were guaranteed up in 2 weeks, 1,536 square foot barns. And they were just open in the top with a floor, second story, and the bottom was a cement slab. Well, we stubbed in the plumbing underneath it, you know, for the bathroom and the kitchen, and it rolled copper. You just rolled it out. And anyway, we bought this barn. And anyway, I had a friend of ours that went to the church. He'd worked on the Alaskan pipeline for years, and then he worked on Interstate 15, getting it through the mountains. And he was a bulldozer driver. So we rented a big old, what was it, a D8 or whatever it was, $500. And he came out and he says, "You know, up there on the hill, there's a little bit more of a flatter spot, you know." So I go, "Okay, let's go for that then." So anyway, he cut us a pad on the side of the hill, and then we, you know, we hired this barn built, and they came out, and a guy at the Bible study had a window shop, and so you had to mark on this barn where you wanted all the windows, you know, when they built it on the blueprints. And so he gave me the windows. I had $500 or something, his cost. And so as they built it, they put the windows in. So here's this house that looks done on the outside, and there's nothing on the inside. It's just bare, you know. And then we bought a 26-foot camp trailer. My father-in-law financed it, and we put it by the old guy had a stroke, and he tried to get it up that hill, and he couldn't do it, and he backed it off, practically off the side, you know, and I was running toward him. I just couldn't get there in time, you know. And so I had this old road tractor I'd bought for $300, and they said, "You pull that up the hill, that thing's going to flip over on you." But some guy yelled out, "Well, turn it around and pull it up backwards." So these road tractors had one big fat tire in the front and great big tires in the back. It was a farming tractor. And we hooked a chain around the front of that thing, and I pulled that Chevy truck and that trailer up the hill. Of course, everybody's cheering, you know. But it was just one thing after another. The Lord provided this and provided that. And it was a low-budget house. We cooled with a big swamp cooler. Anybody out west, you know what those are. It's a big box with grooves in the side of it, and it's got Excelsior in it, and there's a big squirrel cage inside. And then there's a sump in the bottom with a little 1/8 horsepower pump, and it pumps water up, and it runs down through all this, and and this big blower I mean, out in that dry climate, it felt like an air conditioner, you know. And then we had a chimney built up the front of it. And then I had this big, we bought this, we had a couple wood stoves. And that's what we heated with. We had no heat for 30 years, but that wood stove. But I worked at a wood shop, so I just brought home the scraps.
It was
Oh,
great. It was
it's like
1,536 square feet, and we made 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. And Dwane and his talent and his dad, they cherried it out. I had things, I had cabinets, I had all oak cabinets. He did a railing all around the front of the house and in the back. Up the stairs, I had hampers, and he even made curtain rods that he turned on the end. He made for my drapes. He made, I wanted an old-fashioned washstand. He made that for me. I mean, everything I wanted, he says, I'll give it to you. So, you know, Dwane and his dad were so gracious. And I'll never forget, they wouldn't give us any insurance on the property. And I sat there one day, and we were kind of hurt a little bit in the sense that we couldn't make we didn't have a lot of money. We were doing things. We never took out a loan. Everything we paid for was with cash. And the Lord said to me, he said, Mary, this is Beulah land. Everything you have here is owned, operated, and protected by me. And I knew that God had his hand in everything that we were doing. So, you know, it's just amazing. I'll never forget once Dwane's dad had olive trees, and we went ahead and we made 60 gallons of fresh, homemade olives. And that was pretty fun. So later on down the line, we had moved over because we had gotten things ready. And what happened was, Dwane, you shut down the wood shop, didn't you? Later on? And we had some different experience. We were actually raising cows then. So we always had a cow in the freezer, and it was pretty cool. We raised cows for 25 years. And I actually worked up in the apple orchard up in Julian, and what happened was I would bring home the pears and the apples, and I'd just give them to the cows, you know. So they were basically our mowers on the land, and they kept away the brush, and they also mowed the grass. So in 2003, Dwane had actually taken a job over at Young Life Oak Bridge, and he was doing some finished carpentry in different areas. It was kind of like a recession going on. So he had taken another job, and he did a lot of maintenance over there at Young Life Oak Bridge. And we were home one day, and I was homeschooling the kids at that time. And we got a call from this guy.
We woke us up during the night, and he says, there's a fire coming around the back of your house. And what it is you have these Santa Ana winds, and wherever that wind goes is exactly where that fire goes. And it's 70 miles an hour. They come fast. Well, it come around the side of the mountain from us, the other side, and we're out there looking at it, and I go, we're not going to put this out with a garden hose, you know. And so we were praying, Lord, we need an angel. Well, up the back road there was a guy by the name of Ron Angel. He's the bulldozer driver. And then I looked down there and I go, you know, that fire line that went by, it's going out, you know, and I could see it over there. So anyway, and then it swang back around later, but he'd called all his friends, and 7 bulldozers and 5 water trucks. And they built a roadblock, and somehow he knew people, and here come the bombers, and they put out the fire, and it went around our valley and left one green spot, and that was us. You know.
And then Well, we're going to kind of
Have to hurry up a little.
pull this together a little bit more. That was in 2003, okay? So he was no angel, by the way, okay? But he manned all the fires and never came into the valley. And we had meat in the freezer, and there was somebody that left ice down at the bottom of the road, and I was able to put that on our meat that was in the freezer. In '07, we were coming back here to look at property and we bought our property here in 2006, 2007. And then what happened was the Lord woke me up and he said, bulwark. And I didn't know that this was going to happen, but when we were back here, I asked Dwane, I said, what's a bulwark? And he says, it's a mound of dirt that keeps you from the enemy. We were back here 2 weeks at my daughter's. Another fire came through. So the Lord had put a bulwark around our property. I've got pictures right here. I'll show you, and then we're going to go into the education. The other picture showed this is our property. We had 70-mile-an-hour winds. Our property is right
In the middle of that red spot.
that red spot. It burned all the trees. We had planted Christmas trees all around our property. It never once touched the house. It burned the bottom of the trees, and it went ahead and touched the mulch that was around my roses, touched the foundation. That was my Beulah land. That was my bulwark that the Lord was saying to me. And we were coming down out of Kentucky after we had looked at log homes. And my daughter called me from Trayside. She was living here. And she said, Mom, there's a fire coming down. And I'll be honest with you, Dwane said, there's an angel on the roof too. So I knew that the Lord had preserved our land, even though we couldn't even get back to it, okay? And that was just a miracle. And Dwane would leave the Bible open of the 91st Psalm all the time when we had property back here and when we had property there. And once the Lord spoke to him and said,
I was putting it out there. I always did this when we left places, you know. It's not a matter of faith, it becomes a knowing. But I was putting it out there, and I heard the Lord speak to me just as plain as day. You know I can read. You know, so I kind of quit doing that, you know. Anyway.
okay, I guess we're going to wind this up now, and we're going to go into water, okay? We're going to talk about water.
Anyway, we did this again and built the shell of a log house here, and then we jobbed it out, and we actually built another house here, basically doing it the same way. Except this time I knew where the corners of my property was. And I didn't split the lot.
And I'll put pictures on it at another time because I just didn't have time to do it. So, okay.
Anyway, being a Vietnam veteran, I get this Agent Orange newsletter. And anyway, I just got this about 2 weeks ago. And it's talking about what they sprayed. I'll get to that. In Vietnam, we reads better like this. Anyway, they sprayed these chemicals on the land and stuff over there. They were the color of the canister is. I'm going to shorten this. The color of the canister is what they went by that. Like Agent Orange was in an orange canister, and there was pink, blue, purple, and white canisters. And anyway, there was Agent Orange 2, Agent Orange 3, and Super Orange were sprayed in South Vietnam. And of course, the Agent Blue was to kill their rice fields. We're not going there. So basically, and here's a list of the diseases that we Vietnam veterans get. I mean, there's a whole list, and of course they're deadly.
But it's the same thing as glyphosate, okay? And this is what's in the water in Tennessee. All your primary, all your domestic water,
It's called Roundup.
okay? And it's like the highest in Tennessee.
It's really high. It lists. I don't really understand how they break this all down, but it's in the primary water, and it's exactly the same in your domestic water. What it did, give me which was the thing on this one here? It's in her. I'll tell you, you're not going to believe it. I guess you will.
Read this, Dwayne. Read this right here.
Man, I'm going to make sure I got it right.
A Monsanto? Okay.
Anyway, this basically Monsanto in 1970 developed this, and they started using it in 1974. Well, basically what they're doing is Monsanto, it has these hybrid grains and different seeds that are Roundup resistant. And so what they're doing is, like you go to harvest a crop, the top of the vines are in the way. So they spray it with Roundup, and it kills all the vines. And then the harvesting machines come through and dig up the product. You know, it's cost effective, but it's going in the food. And anyway, during the Obama administration, the Roundup had reached its limit in the American people's bodies. I had articles before, you're basically peeing Roundup. And if you eat organic, you're peeing half as much Roundup. But anyway, it had reached the point in the American people that they had too much for what was allowable. So they went during the Obama thing, and I'm sure there was some stuff there, and they doubled the amount. So basically, this is where we're going with the water thing. And this is the Tennessee water stuff that we copied off the internet. Pages of everything that's in your water here.
No, I pulled it off of Tennessee Water.
It's off Tennessee water.
Tennessee Water, and then I looked up. Now I'm going to tell you what's in reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis is water that is forced under pressure through synthetic semi-permeable membrane. The water that passes through the membrane goes into a storage tank, usually plastic or rubber. Most of the water goes down the drain with the contaminants that are removed. In theory, the membrane, because it is extremely small pore size, prevents microorganisms and chemical contaminants from passing through the membrane. In practice, however, the contaminants build up, clog, and damage the membrane. Bacteria grow through the membrane and make holes in it, and the quality of water produced by reverse osmosis degrades over time. This means that the quality of the water is not consistent, and the customer has little peace of mind. Then you've got the water filters that you probably have on your refrigerator, or sometimes you put it on your faucet. It says this water is passed through a filter to remove certain contaminants. Most filters use activated carbon which has been treated by high heat in the absence of oxygen to absorb some organic and inorganic contaminants. Absorption occurs by the strong molecular attraction that carbon in the filter has for some of the contaminants often found in water. Now, the purified water, this is interesting. The purified water is a water that has been mechanically filtered or processed to remove bacteria, viruses, chemical pollutants, minerals like lead and copper, and in most developed countries like USA and Canada, tap water is considered purified water. Filtration is through charcoal, sand, and gravel to remove bacteria, dirt, and dust, chemical contaminants, and unwanted particles. Then what they do to disinfect the water, they add a chemical like chlorine to say that the water's purified. Okay, now, this Berkey right here, Dwayne's going to tell you about the Berkey.
Okay, this is a Berkey over here. I know that some of you already have one. The filters come in a box, and this whole list from here to here, it takes out 99 point something percent of all this list of chemicals here, and that's pretty impressive. Of course, we called last week on the glyphosate, and they were hesitant. Said, "Well, it gets out like 70% of it. It's not listed on here." But anyway, these filters in here, these are the charcoal filters. They're ground up coconut shells, and we called, asked what was in the inside, and they said, "Well, that's secret." So, but all trade secret or something. But then you can get these other ones that are some kind of carbonized aluminum, and they'll take out fluoride, about 70% of it. You're just not going to get it all. But overall, if in a worst case scenario, you can dump pond water in there and it'll go through and you can drink it. So, we have a creek down below our house, and it's pretty clear and it looks nice. So I thought in a disaster, God forbid, I can take water and I can put it in here and I can drink it. So, but I'd have to hike down the hill. But anyway, I know people are finding ways to cheat on the Berkeys. They don't have to pay for it. You drill some pans from Walmart and you order the filters and then you buy the spigot. It tells you how to do it, and you can save some money.
We actually got ours at a place up in Ohio where I get a lot of things from the Amish. And we got it at Lehman's. I don't know if you ever heard of Lehman's. You need to take a trip up to Lehman's if you've never been there. And it's all non-electric. I have the catalog right here, okay? But here's the key. Dwane and I have had a water distillation for 50 years. Okay, and I have a picture of it. Mine has lasted me 30 years. I've had different ones as the kids grew. And we've been married 50 years. In our valley, where we had well water, we washed with well water, we bathed with well water, but when we drank water, this is what we drank. And a lot of people get hung up, and there's a lot of there was a lot of rust in our water there. And what it is they get hung up and they say, well, you got to get this organic. You got to get the organic things that are in your body, that's in the soil. No. Your body does not break that down. What you need to do, because they use this, and I'll read to you about everything that's in a water still, what it does is it evaporates the water, it goes into it, and the water goes down in the tank. And what you're doing is you're getting your minerals from your food. And I know this is true because Dwane and I have had blood tests. We're not low in anything, and we don't even take minerals. Okay? So what you're getting is you get a lighter feeling when you're taking distilled water, and it's just, this is some of the things they say about distilled water. The process of distillation kills and removes virtually all bacteria, viruses, heavy metals, and other organic or inorganic contaminants. And what it is when you have all these waters, and I used to know a doctor that I took my kids to, and she said, anytime you drink any of the waters, they are not removing any of the contaminants of the viruses. Okay? So you're not getting good water when you're drinking all these things right here. Water that's purified, water filters, reverse osmosis, and Berkey. So this was actually wrote by, this actually was a comment that was wrote by, let's see. Distilled water is water that has been turned into vapors so that all its impurities are left behind. Then by condensing, is turned back into pure water. The only water which is pure is the only water free from impurities. The only minerals that the body can utilize are organic minerals, and other types of minerals are foreign substances to the body, must be eliminated. Distilled water is the only water that can be taken into the body. Now, this is from the Mayo Clinic. This is from, his name is Dr. Charles Mayo of Mayo Clinic. Water hardness, inorganic minerals in solution is the underlying cause of many, if not all, the diseases resulted from poisons in the intestinal tract. The last part of it, you want me to read the whole thing? Okay, water hardness, inorganic minerals in solution is the underlying cause of many, if not all, of the diseases resulting from poisons in the intestinal tract. These hard minerals pass from the intestinal walls and get into the lymphatic system, which delivers all of its products to the blood, which in turn distributes to all parts of the body. This is the cause of much of human disease. And I've got some distilled water I'm going to give you a sample of, okay? So I'll let you try our distilled water. And I've got pictures. We actually just ordered another one a year to get. And it's all stainless steel. And how much does it cost? It's on sale for $2,000. But you got to realize our other one right here lasted. This is it right here. You see the copy of it? This is what it looks like. You can look at it. This lasted us over 35 or 40 years. And it's all stainless steel. And I always put my water in glass bottles. And I know, and I can tell when Dwane and I drink, we'll drink water from the Berkey. And the Berkey actually is fine, but we put our well water in there. But most of the time I'm using my distilled water for most things. Because I want to drink it. I feel good when I drink it. So yeah, this company is actually, I got this particular one from Pure Water Society. And now they've actually changed it. It's actually called Pure Water. It was Aqua Still, I believe. It was called Aqua Still. And I've got a picture of their water stills. I like this one because it's more like it's more like what we have. And I like the tank that distributes. And this will do 10 gallons in a day. Okay, and it's on sale, $450 less. Okay? I'll give you can go onto Duracell Water Systems. And you can look at it and see what you think. You can actually plug this one in to your regular house system. This one right here. And they've made it now, I think they've made it now where I was talking to the guy, and I really liked the way they were dealing with Dwane and I. So we put our money down on it, and we're going to get it probably towards the end of this year. But it's got rollers on it. You can roll it into the house, roll it outside on the porch, and it's it's a good setup. It's got a glass. Ours had a glass thing that you could see on the front where the water level was. And we like that. This other one that was made by my old company, I liked the way they were dealing with us. And they're out in Nebraska where our windmill was made. But I like this one. This one actually comes out of Florida. And they're made by the same company as this one. They get a lot of the same parts. But what it is they were more customer friendly, and they've actually perfected a lot of the things. They said that it runs at the same amount of voltage, and our electric bill doesn't run that much more because you're getting so much water to use. You don't have to worry about wasting it. You know what I mean? You enjoy it. You cook with it, and what's nice about this is they're getting the same parts, but they've been in business for about since 1970. So they've been around for a while. So I have actually some distilled water. I'm going to let you try. And then from here, I'm going to go into fermentation. Okay? And I've been fermenting for about 6 years.
So just to recap, so for distillation, I'm a nurse and I've always read it was dead water because all the oxygen's been taken out of it as well as other things. And so it's, when you put it, that's one of the things they want you to put in, like the water vapor things when you've got a cold, like a water humidifier and stuff. But what do you say to that? Because you're saying this is better than all the other things because it's the viruses and the contaminants that are poisoning our bodies.
When I had my children, I'm looking back 49 years. I went to a doctor that worked in a Christian school, and she was a friend of a friend of mine's, and she got us in and she put you on a slant board and she looked at your body, and she was very alert. She taught me about vaccinations. She taught me about all kinds of natural things. And one thing that she told me about was distilled water. Yes. And there's a prescription for nutritional healing. It's a book. It's like a big Bible that you can go to and look through for anytime you got a cold, anytime you have gallstones, anytime, and it'll tell you it was wrote by Dr. Bach. And you can get it online. I've actually even seen them at estate sales. And you can get them, and you know what he pushes? Is distilled water. Are you familiar with, I've got a whole thing on doctors right here talking about distilled water. So what it is you got to learn to question authority. Okay? You have to learn. And, Dwane and I are 73 years old, okay? And we actually, okay, Dwane's going to be 74. I'm going to be 74 this year. And I will tell you, I don't feel that. Do you understand what I'm saying? So because I'm this old, I'm not stopped learning. So, it's not about what you've been told, but learn to think outside the box. And that's where you find your answers. Okay? And it's okay what you feel. Yes. But you know what? If the Lord wants you to get into that direction, He'll show you. And there's no problem.
So do you have any information on gallons of distilled water that you can buy at Walmart and Kroger and all that?
When Dwane and I have went camping, we've bought water from Walmart. And once we got a really bad distilled water. Now, I will tell you, if it says the steam distilled, that would be where I'd go. Steam distilled from distilling. Oh, I think, Publix has a good brand. Yeah, Publix will have a good brand. But when you make your own water, you're making water for like I don't know, 25 cents a gallon. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Don't get it at Walmart though. I don't really think it's good quality because we've kind of been slammed a little bit different when we bought some there. And they didn't want to believe, but we could taste it that it just wasn't up to par. It almost tastes like regular city water. So, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you've got like your Crystal Geyser. That's up there, and it comes out of where's it come out of Mammoth, up in California.
It's in the high Sierras. It's in the high Sierras, but uh, it's got a certain amount of arsenic in it, right? Because it's all volcanic.
Okay. Yeah. So just to piggyback off what she's saying as a nurse, like I love my Berkey. I'm totally fine with viruses coming through my Berkey because like I believe that God designed our bodies extremely efficiently. It's why I intermittent fast to get into autophagy. Because I know that my cells, if given the chance, are going to repair themselves because of how divinely created they were. And so exposing myself to virus is like cold therapy. It's hardening to my body. I fought off Giardia with 104-degree fever. And that was it. Giardia is like one of the worst things that you can get. I got it in India, but I can drink the water in India. Like I wouldn't advise it. I would not advise it. I brush my teeth with the water in India. That's like my little inoculation, but I'm there twice a year. So I think that there's truth to pure distillation, yes. But I think that these things need to be used in tandem because you do have to have a certain amount of exposure. Skin brushing, that's very nourishing for your lymph. And that can support your lymph when you need it. But I don't know if I can go all in 100% distillation because it feels like for me, it would remove some of that exposure that I like to put my body into.
It has a lot to do with see, this is what I was going to go into. I was going to talk about the gut, okay? This is where you have to learn to build, is in your gut, because that's your second brain right there, okay? And what it is they tell you when you're making any of your ferments, you cannot put city water into it. You got to put good water into it, okay? But what I'm saying is it really has a lot to do with how you feel, and what you feel like. I don't feel, Dwane and I, normally when things come around, we ward them off, because our diets are good. Dwane he's been around Agent Orange and he has low platelets. And all the veterans that have been over in Vietnam have very low platelets. The only thing that survives him is the fact that he has a good diet. So his blood is good, even though he has low platelets. So we think we put into everything. I think each one of us are individually made, and it's whatever God allows you to understand, or seek it out. You'll be set free, whatever you feel to do. I was told this by a doctor that I know personally. I learned a lot of things from her. I've learned a lot of things about what's in the water and what happens with the water. And, a lot of your viruses that go around, even in the restaurants, they say don't drink she say don't drink the water, don't drink that city water, you can get a lot of stuff. So, I've kind of used a lot of guidelines for different things. Right. Well, there's good and bad and everything, right? You know what I mean? So where do you draw the line? See? And that's where your conviction is. And I will say that. From my own standpoint, that's where I draw the line. But you do whatever you feel to do. And the Lord will honor that, So, okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into convert. Okay, I gotta hold my light. Okay, I gotta hold my light. Okay. This is my fermenting jar. This is my baby. So this is my 1 liter. I have another one that is 3 liters, and this is my 1 liter. You can make small things in here. And it has a rubber gasket on it. And you put it around here like this. And then it has, put all your veggies, whatever you make. It's called the probiotic jar. Okay? And what you do is you put this little dish underneath here. After you get all your veggies, you put your veggies all the way up to here. And everything has its own brine that you put in it. And let me see, let me go to here. This is a probiotic jar. Okay, comes in all different sizes. The lady that made these, she gets them from France. And what it is they have a little hole in here. And then you have a bubbler that you stick in here and you fill it full of water, and you never get any bugs in there. Never, never. And you put water in there, and in about a week, whatever you make, you can actually go ahead and put it on the counter, put a little towel around it, make it warm, and then sometimes you have to add other spices. So today I brought my sauerkraut, which I make out of my big 5-gallon. Every year I make 5 gallons of sauerkraut from Germany. I actually got a really good deal on this up at Lehman's. They had them in the second hand store. It had a little chip on it. Dwayne says, I can get that off. And it's like it was almost $300, and I paid like $35 for it. So it has a moat around it. It has a moat around it, and it has 2 pieces of what are they made out of, Dwayne? Pottery. They're pottery, and you push it down, and the sauerkraut goes down. That's where I make my sauerkraut, and that will last me all year long. And then when I go up, we go camping up in the Amish country, they've got cabbages. Okay? And I get them for like $1.25 each, and I bring home 8 of them. And then I'm like, Dwayne helped me last year chop it up, and I make my sauerkraut in that. But today I brought sauerkraut, and I brought my Indian fermented cauliflower, and that has a lot of pungency to it. And then I also brought some homemade yogurt that I get my milk from my friend who has very good Jersey cow. And she's had her milk all tested, and I get my eggs from her, and she raises her own fryers. And so sometimes I'll get them there, and sometimes I get them next to the Stutzmans up in Ohio, because I've been to the Stutzmans and gotten their mixes and stuff before. So, but anyways, as far as fermentation, gut health. Primary causes of an ailing gut health are antibiotics, stress, hormone manipulation, poor heritage population, standard American diet, viruses, diabetes, and pesticides. And of course, you've got GMOs, bad for humans, bad for earth, glyphosate, antibiotic, direct threat to humans through unprecedented damage to the biome. Biome? Is that how you say it? Biome? And the microbiome is actually, is a collection of all microbes such as bacteria, fungi, viruses, and their genes that naturally live on our bodies and inside of us. Although microbes are so small that they require a microscope to see them, they contribute in a big way to human health and wellness. And they're in your mouth, your skin, your digestive, and your urinary tract. Okay? And then you've got the cycle of a compromised health is illness intervention, compromised gut health, antigens in her bloodstream, immune response, stress and inflammation, hormonal stress response, inflammation reduction and immune system suppression, poor immune function, and illness. And the fermenting benefits give you pre-digest food, increase enzyme, mineral, and vitamin content, improve absorption of other nutrition, healthy bacteria survive stomach acid, small intestinal flora balance, help fight infection, improve taste and texture of food, break down anaphylaxins in the body, improve appetite for healthy food. What is fermentation? To many people, fermentation simply means the production of alcohol, grains, and fruits are fermented to produce beer and wine. If a food is sourced, you may say it was off or fermented. Here are some definitions of fermentation. So now this is another key. If any of you can get this book, she is a neurologist. She's been on Dr. Oz. She is actually talks about your gut and your brain and how it is so related in your life. I have taken her prime tea. It has coriander in it, it has fennel in it, and it has cumin in it. And I can read to you maybe later on what they do, because I know we're running out of time. Her name is Clarette Kalahari. She is actually from India. Okay, you can get it. You can come and get it. I'm going to leave it out here. Okay, you can just take a picture right here. But she will tell you how to balance your gut. And she's good. She's from India. She's got a website. You can go on her Facebook. She has things that you might not agree with. Me too. But you can glean from it and gather information from it. She's amazing. And the prime tea, you can put ginger in it. You take 4 cups of water. In fact, what I'll do is I'll send it to you, everybody on the Homesteading, what she talked about as far as gut health. And there's some things in there. Just look up, because they use berries and they use other things. You can get all this at an India store. Okay? That's what you can do. Well, you need to get one of these. You need to get her book, because what it is we have a fire in our gut. Okay, and that fire has to be maintained. And when it goes out, that's when we get disease. We don't balance things, and that's what have you ever heard of Ayurvedic? Ayurvedic? Okay, this is what she does. And it's so amazing. It's one of the oldest medicines that you can get. And she teaches with that. She's actually a doctor at the in San Diego at one of the medical hospitals. They use her for counseling. I don't know if she's been on Dr. Oz. She's been on so many websites. But this book will tell you there's 3 body types. And you'll find out what you are by looking at it.
Just real quick.
Yeah, please.
Real quick. Amazon, it's under The Prime. You'll see that book cover come up. But go under sellers, and there's like 147 sellers. The very first seller is $1.99. So, yes. So you can have this. You all can have it in your home.
That's great.
It's a good book to have.
That's great. Okay, I have a video guy question. I don't know any of this stuff, so I know it's 101. I named it because I don't know Zippo. I bet half of y'all know about this, but how do you actually ferment? Is it a mixture of salt? And can you give me that? Okay. I like this little device. I want one of those.
This right here is my little brine jar. I got this. See, what happened was there was a big barn up in Ohio where Dwane and I go shopping in this Amish campground up in Ohio. And that's where we bought our logs for our log house. We brought them back. And the Lord just kept on directing us to go up to Ohio. And everything that we get for the house, we got it up in Ohio. So we met some people up there, and they were telling us about this Wholesome Valley. And they were giving a seminar on this particular lady that made these. So I couldn't make it at the time. So I went back and I asked them if I could get the recipes for my jar. And I've got all the recipes that they taught in this jar. Yeah, yeah. Well, I've actually got the whole webinar for this particular jar. She sent me free. And I could put it, I don't know if it would look like, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble with her because she was so kind to give it to me for free. Okay. So if I bought the book, it's like $50. Okay. Would I have at home? But this is where, you can do granola. I've made pickles in my bigger jar. Granola. Yes. You can do all kinds of stuff. Yeah. No, it grows on you. Okay, I brought yogurt too. Okay, if you guys, let me say something to you. Well, I've got recipes for everything. Okay, but excuse me, let me share something with you. I actually called the Weston Price Foundation, and I got one of these up in Stutzman's when we were up there buying flour. And I called her, and she was so kind to give me, by Dr. Price, these brochures on how to eat. They're free. You guys can take one. Okay, I also have these books here. You can look through them. And if you go to this particular website, right here, Weston A. Price, put your name, put where you live, and it'll pop up where to get a lot of things. Like I was going to do my SCOBY make my kombucha, but you have to have a warm weather, and I was doing it when it was raining. It was not particular. But you can look at that website, put your name in if you want, and it'll tell you if you ever have a question where you want to get meat. I can tell you about where to get meat up in Van Leer. I know some Mennonite people that raise it on the land. And you go directly to their meat shop there and you buy it from them. You don't have to buy a whole cow. You can get a roast, a couple pounds of ground beef, and I can tell you where to go. I've got info, okay?
Thank you. Okay, yeah, here's what we're going to do. We should probably do a 3-day seminar. No, there's a lot of information here. And a lot of you guys are educated as well. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to open up the one-on-one homesteading for anybody to post on there that knows information. Not one person knows everything. So this is what about community is. Hearing from you for the first time, I know you've got a lot of wealth of information. I could point. Well, there you go. So somebody does, but that's my point. So I really would encourage you guys to get on one-on-one. Mary's been sharing on there. There's a lot more she could share. Unfortunately, we did run out of time. So I really want to encourage you. Let's form this community and start talking. Let's do the dialogue. Like you, I don't know anything. I wanted to start learning, so I'm baby steps. I'm down here. A lot of you guys are way up here, and so anyway, let's keep moving this forward. Thank you so much for bringing your presentation. Yes.
I wanted to show. Whoops. This was off of our well burner, not our well burner, but our distillation burner in our water still. This is our well water. This is calcified. This is what goes in the body. Okay? And when we were in California, a lot of our neighbors were on well water. They got kidney stones. We never got them, because we were on the distilled water. So I'm just sharing that with you. Okay.
Thank you. All right, we're going to do a little, not really a break, but go ahead and do your business. Water, bathroom breaks. We're going to change the table out for our next presenter, and we'll be right back.